Hi. I'm going to close this, and hopefully I don't mess anything up. Um, I don't have any slides or anything. I just have some ideas I want to share with you guys. First off, congratulations to everybody who was up here earlier today. Like, from the few that I saw whenever I came in around middle of the afternoon, just like really, really phenomenal, well thought out, well articulated work. So be proud of yourselves and like just take a deep breath, because I am literally the last guy standing between you finishing your thesis work and you being able to go celebrate finishing your thesis work. So I'm gonna keep this short, okay? Promise. Last time I was in a situation to do like a thesis presentation, I was an undergrad and it was mostly bullshit. None of you did that, by the way, so congratulations to all of you for not falling down the same pit that I did. But sometimes a rose can grow in bullshit. Donald Rumsfeld, as terrible as he is, said one good thing in his life. Of course, he used that good thing to sort of obfuscate the fact that there's no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but I'm going to offer him a temporary pass because it's a nice, concise framework for knowledge, and I'm going to use it for this talk. Here's what he said. He said that there's things that you know and then things that you don't. So sometimes you're aware of your ignorance or knowledge, and then other times you're not. This means you've got like a nice little grid with 4 quadrants sitting on it. You have the known knowns, and that's the knowledge that you know that you have. That's the stuff that we're all here celebrating today. You have the known unknowns. This is a person's awareness of their blind spots. There's also the unknown unknowns. So these are the things that you are totally oblivious towards. You just don't know that you're ignorant about it. And then, most interesting to me, there's the unknown knowns, which is the subconscious. It's sort of the native knowledge that you carry around with you, and you take it for granted because you don't realize it's exceptional knowledge. Now, this is a great framework, and it's a useful map for me today because I want to talk about designing with an open mind. If our theme here today is open, and I'm sort of forced to close things out, I kind of need to get creative with how I'm applying things here. Now, by this, I don't just mean being open-minded to fresh and novel configurations inside of design, but I mostly want to talk about different vantages to the whole conception of what we do as designers. I think we take a lot of assumptions for granted, and it's only over the past few months that I've begun to realize how uncomfortable these assumptions make me. So I've been dragging the lake in my unknown knowns to look for different ways of explaining maybe an alternate take of seeing how to be a designer. I want to share some of those with you today, and I hope that maybe you'll agree with a few of them. And if you do, you can take the pieces that you like and stick them in your pocket and walk back out into the world with them. Now, I'm not the first guy to be made uncomfortable by the thoughts that are stuck in my head. That's a problem that's as old as time. Ever since we've been thinking thinky thoughts, those thinky thoughts have been unsettling. Case in point, I want to bring up the ancient Greek philosopher Meno. He's even older than Socrates, so really, really old. Meno had a question that he couldn't get out of his head. It was this: how will you go about finding that thing, the nature of which is totally unknown to you? In other words, what Meno is asking is, how can we ever know what we need if we don't have it? Especially if it's foreign and we've never had it. So much of what we desire, what we want to get out of experiences life, is about introducing foreignness. It's about augmenting ourselves with new material. It's about love, wisdom, grace, inspiration, whatever. These are extensions of the self. They're the elements of life that make a person's boundaries grow and move further out from their core. This is what we need the most, and it's also the most difficult thing to begin to explain how to get. So we're lost, and Meno, the philosopher, has lobbed this monster of an open-ended question on us. It's pretty heavy, so I'm going to let it hang for a little bit and move from an open-ended question to an open space. I think the biggest one in the country, I didn't actually look up the stats, but I want to talk about Yellowstone National Park. More specifically, the park's bears. and maybe use those bears as a way to explain what it means to have a design practice that opens up instead of one that closes out. So right now it's estimated that there's about 1,200 bears inside of Yellowstone. Of course, the bears, like the rest of the wildlife in the park, are forced to cohabitate with the park's visitors. But unlike other animals in the park, the bears they're kind of troublesome. Because bears like what people like, mainly good, easy to get food. Unlike people, bears have a great nose to find that food, and they don't have a particular aversion to theft. So if you leave a picnic basket in your car full of delicious sandwiches, it's very likely that you'll return to your car to see it being violently rocked back and forth by a 500-pound black bear attempting to get your ham sandwich. Clearly, this is a problem, right? Not only did you lose your lunch, but that's also your ride home. Now, since design is frequently framed up as problem solving, and this is an interaction design program, and there's some interaction happening there between a man and a bear and a sandwich and a car, I want to ask everybody, how would you go about responding to that problem? Maybe less specifically if you're the guy who's watching his car being hulked out on, and more as a ranger at the park, for instance. As best as I can tell, there's two options. And both of the options are nice little motifs about how we approach problems as designers, or simply as people. The first path is the method chosen by early rangers at Yellowstone in the 19th century. They had a very similar problem because wolves on the park were eating neighboring ranchers' livestock. So again, a problem over disagreements about who gets to eat what. The rangers opted to eliminate what caused the problem and hunted the wolves to the point of near extinction. Problem solved, I guess, but not really in the most elegant fashion. The second way, it's a little more gentle, but it's definitely more time-consuming. In the 70s, Yellowstone introduced what they called a bear management program. When I hear that, I kind of think of like bears in white collared shirts and bears holding coffee mugs, but it's actually not that at all. The funny thing about the bear management program is that it's really a people management program, because the best way to prevent bear and human brush-ups is to have people behave responsibly. Place edibles in bear-proof receptacles, slow down and watch out for bears on the road, and so on. It's easier to direct and instruct a person than a bear, after all. So thankfully, the bear management program was a success. Bear populations went up across the park because fewer bears were being hit by cars, and the bears eventually reverted to their natural food sources whenever the sandwich supply dried up. So this is our happy ending to the problem. Man makes better choices. Bear isn't lured to sandwich-rich parking lots. Bear learns he doesn't need sandwiches to eat until bear gives up the sandwich hunt. And then the whole process starts again the next day. Bear management challenges are restored anew, and the problem is slightly diminished. I'm sharing this little weird parable about Yellowstone because I think it describes both sides of how to approach problems. Some designers want to shoot the wolves, and others want to manage the bears. One is trying to make an antidote, and the other invests in the process to keep things open and adaptable. I think we often mischaracterize design as a process of problem solving, as if the problems go away. But closure, at least in my experience, is so rare in design. The loops stay open because most problems are chronic and shift forms. At least the big ones are. They can be diminished, but they hardly ever go away entirely. Trying to solve them feels like trying to win at whack-a-mole. You whack down one mole and two more pop up. I'd often say that the best thing a designer can hope to do is to create a response to a problem rather than a solution. Solutions are reproducible, they're predictable, they're consistent, and they work independently of the context. And if I take a quick survey of everything that I've ever made that worked really well, it's so dependent on the context that it probably wouldn't work at all in a different one. I think solutions, for the most part, are impossible because silver bullets don't exist. Unless, you're actually using a silver bullet to shoot a wolf. So the next time you're sitting down to work on a design project, I'd like you to ask yourself a question. What am I being asked to do here? Do I need to shoot wolves, or do I need to manage bears? The wolf approach is about disrupting the order of things and eliminating the presumed source of the problem. This is the kind of thinking that I fear is taking over hubs for our industry, places like Silicon Valley, and becoming the dominant story about how to design businesses, services, and interfaces for technology. There's a violence to this approach that I don't like, almost a will to destroy something old to make way for the new, and a refusal to acknowledge the importance of the source of the problem as a major character in the ecosystem. If you shoot the wolves no longer eat the livestock, but you also no longer have wolves. What will come of that? The bear approach, on the other hand, is about the thankless work of maintenance and managing a difficult situation from getting out of balance. Rather than shooting the source of the problem, you become its shepherd. This honors a few things that I think are frequently overlooked. First, that the situation is more complicated than we initially think. Second, things can change. Third, that you don't know everything at the beginning of the process. And fourth, that bears, or whatever are the facets of the problem, have a will of their own. You're in dialogue with the problem, and you're giving it time to let the situation describe itself. Of course, bear managing takes patience and time. And I'm not going to make too many requests in this little talk of mine, but here's the first one. I want you to set your feet. Not to take a blow, but to plant roots. So much needs to be improved, fixed, and changed, but the kind of work the important issues require undermine anyone who thinks they can flit from place to place. Staying put for a while and chipping away means so much in a field that's now allergic to steadiness. We need people who live and work well in their places, folks who commit to it and realize they need to build a home that they want rather than hoping to find it. Design's lack of closure can be frustrating at times, but a simple act of commitment can be the gift you give yourself to make all of that lack of stability more bearable. One of the things that I've recently just accepted myself is that in your design career, you will have very, very few epiphanies. Perhaps you've started to understand this the past few weeks while you've been working on your thesis project. But there's a different satisfaction which doesn't really get much fanfare. It's the slow burn of being able to see things more clearly. This sounds simple, but it's in fact really difficult and profound. So what kind of things are you seeing more clearly? So much. First, the problem, your work, the talent of your coworkers, your role from job to job, your audience, their needs, their requirements, their unspoken desires. Design isn't a high numbers game. It's like baseball. Home runs are rare, and hitting 3 out of 5 is actually pretty good. So because you'll fail so often, and because that's normal, you're going to have to find some joy in that pursuit of clarity. If you take it for granted, you're going to struggle with all kinds of existential problems because so often you won't get anything more than the knowledge from the clarity. I wish somebody would have told me that when I was leaving Port because it would have saved me a lot of heartache. The other major professional challenge you're about to face is how to reconcile ignorance. As a student, it's presumed you will not know things. As a professional, you have a new problem. How do you navigate situations where you do not know, especially if you have just completed years of training and tended to load your brain with knowledge, facts, habits, and working methods? I suppose the answer is simple to understand and actually quite hard to execute. You need to say that you don't know without believing that ignorance shines back on you. So I have a little trick that I've developed to help me along. Perhaps this isn't the best thing to say to a bunch of people who just went into debt to gain knowledge, but here we go. I think you should sell your ignorance and your ability to figure things out. It's just a good business plan. Because a skull is only so big, there's upper limits to the amount that a person can know. But the number of things that a person doesn't know, oh my God, like look at me. I'm up here giving this talk, and I don't know nearly everything in the world. I've got way more product if I'm willing to sell my ignorance than if I'm selling my expertise. I learned that little trick from Donald Rumsfeld. I learned it from his bullshit, so you can take it from my bullshit if you want. And maybe selling your ignorance or owning the ignorance is actually an asset, can help you navigate expertise in ignorance and the weird imposter syndrome that frequently bubbles up when you're on the cusp of everything. Because that's where you're working. The world is now mostly ligament and tendon. It's all connections all around. And as a designer, and I would say particularly as an interaction designer, it's your job to make these connective borderlands your domain. This is your home, and it's complicated. And now we come to my second request. Please honor that complexity in your work. Design's golden calf is simplicity. Speaking as someone who looks at, makes, and uses design each and every day, I'm tired of simple things. Simple things are weak, they're limited, they're boring. What I truly want is clarity. Give me clear and evident things over simple things. Make me things that presume and honor my intelligence. Give me things that are full of seams instead of things that are seamless. Because if you give me a seam and I pull on the thread, I get to see how the world is stitched together. Put all of this in there. Give me some credit and show me that you trust me. Things don't have to be simple. They don't have to scale. They don't even have to be profitable. You can buck all of those assumptions that seem so commonplace they've turned into gospel. And you can choose to ignore them for no other reason than to get started making something with fresh materials and new assumptions. Designing is a way of creating. It's not just seeking closure from problem solving. It's also looking for beginnings, the beginnings in seeking opportunities. There's many possibilities, and isn't it more exciting to think so? I want to go back to Mino's question at the start, the one I mentioned at the very beginning. I'll read it again. How will you go about finding that thing, the nature of which is totally unknown to you? Now, Mino's older than Socrates, but their lives overlapped a little bit. So if you go back to some of Plato's writing, you'll actually see an engagement between Mino and Socrates. And of course, Socrates, being Socrates, has an answer for Mino's question. Mino's question, how will you go about finding that thing, the nature of which is totally unknown to you? Socrates answers, I know, Mino, what you mean, but just see what a tiresome dispute you are introducing. You argue a man cannot inquire either about that which he knows or about that which he does not know. For if he knows, he has no need to inquire. And if not, he cannot, for he does not know the very subject about which he is to inquire. Socrates is tricky. Of course, Socrates prevails in this mental joust because he always does whenever Plato's writing. But I think if you really look at what Socrates is saying and compare it with Mino's question, Mino and Socrates are saying pretty much the same thing. They're saying, you don't know what you can't know. The problem can't be solved, so there's no closure for you here. This might be agitating to a Greek philosopher, but for me, and even just recently, it's okay. Sometimes the question is more important than the answer. You are caught in an open loop. So the door to the unknown stays open to opportunity, to possibility. And I don't know you, but I think that's a hell of a design decision. Thank you.
So that brings us nearly to the end of our time together. I wanted to point out a few thanks before we part. I want to first thank Gwen Kurtz and Frank Bonomo, who are both on the staff of MFA Interaction Design, and they have helped put this whole thing together, including designing the exhibition and the materials. So thanks to Frank and Gwen. Thanks to all the volunteers. The 2014 class is here with t-shirts on, and they've been helping organize this day. So thank you so much to them. You'll be here next year, right here. Thanks to the theater staff and all of you guys. You've been great. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting us use the theater and for helping us make this possible today. MailChimp, check them out. If you haven't sent a newsletter, now's the time. Thanks to them for being our partner today. And to David Rhodes, Stephen Heller, Jeff Neeson, who are instrumental in helping support our program from a strategic level and have just been my partners in this program behind the scenes since its inception. So thank you for your help. So before we close, I wanted to bring the entire class of 2014 onto the stage. Please come on up. Woo! This is going to be really their last time together. We have graduation, commencement ceremonies tomorrow, but this will be their last time as a class before they're released out into the world. It's really the photo shot is what's happening on. So thank you so much, guys. Congratulations and thank you. Woo, take a bow. You're done.